To win at Kentucky, Diego Pavia and the offense must control the tempo of the game.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. So today we discuss the keys to victory for Vandy this weekend against Kentucky. The Commodores will have to manage the road environment. It'll be tough. They need to find a way to win the turnover battle for Kentucky's offense. Vandy needs to force them to grind and drive the ball. But most importantly, if they can continue to dictate the tempo and control the ball, control the clock, Vandy can win this game, right? And that's very important. So we look at our keys to the game, okay? So those are kind of the main things that kind of stand out as far as just overarching themes within this game, because this environment is extremely difficult, okay? And to overcome that, these are some of the things that you're going to have to do. Controlling the tempo, controlling the clock. I think that's starting to speak to what Vandy's identity is. So if they just stay true to their identity, this was always going to be number one on the list, control the tempo, because that's just so important for them to do. Forcing Kentucky to drive the ball, that kind of plays into that. But I think what Vandy does really well is being able to force teams to get out of the rhythm like that, win the turnover battle this week. That'll be important, and then manage the road environment. I think they had a tough time. They did extremely terrible against Georgia State doing that. They had a better time, but not quite against Missouri. And then, this is their next opportunity for that. So controlling the tempo. All right, what does that mean? So from an offensive perspective, okay, now they did this masterfully against Alabama. This was amazing. With 42 minutes, 8 seconds time of possession against Alabama's defense, it wore them down and it forced their offense to feel a little bit of pressure. And when their offense felt some pressure, they started really kind of trying too hard. They started pressing, right? And they made mistakes. They got impatient. They did things uncharacteristic of themselves, which if you know what they're capable of by watching the first half of that Georgia-Alabama game, you knew what they were capable of. Vandy was able to take them out of that just by possessing the ball for 42 minutes. So that's important. And to do that, you have to get first downs. You have to stay ahead of schedule, things like that. Now, this game being on the road it could be very easy to get into some third and long situations and not be able to function because this environment is tough. Now, I joke and I identify Kentucky Stadium as the grocery bag at Kroger Field. Okay, that doesn't honestly, and I got to comment on this, and it seems like I don't know if that guy speaks for all Kentucky fans, but it seemed like he was a little sensitive about that name. But to explain that, I just say that because it's just a joke I have because it's sponsored by Kroger. It's the big grocery bag. It's just a joke that I make about the name of the stadium. So it means the stadium's nice. It's a great environment. And this is one that they're going to have to deal with, or it's one that Vandy's going to have to deal with. And I think Diego Pavia, for him, if he can, I think he's getting more comfortable with the other 10 guys. Like, he knows the offense well enough to be able to check in and out of plays and to be able to run it. And I think the chemistry is there for him to be able to ride the mesh out a little bit longer on those triple option plays and some of the plays where he's forcing defenders to commit. And I think it takes what that does when he does that is it takes their ability to slow play the option, which that's how you defend the option. You slow play it, make the quarterback be impatient. But I think Diego Pavia is so good at manipulating defenders by being patient with the mesh point that he's starting to get more comfortable with that with this team. I think early in the season you saw there were some drop balls, especially against Virginia Tech. There were some times where he gave it and he should have pulled it, and just getting used to this set of teammates running that system. He'd gotten good at it at New Mexico State, but I think just getting the other guys here on this Vandy team comfortable with that system, you knew it was going to take time and it's going to take reps, and it's getting there. So he's getting more comfortable at being deceptive. The other guys are getting more comfortable at understanding that, and now he's getting to a point to where now he can start to build on what they've been able to do. Now they can start throwing in other looks to it. They can start getting to these plays different ways now. They can start adding motions and backfield motions and pre-snap movement, stuff like that, to kind of throw the defense off of what's coming. So you're able to add more wrinkles. You're able to hit on more of these plays, and you're able to control the clock a little bit. So again, just avoiding I think the biggest key for them to control the tempo is exactly what they did against Alabama. They won on first down way more times than not. They got themselves in favorable second down positions, which allowed them to either pick up the first down or get themselves in the third manageable. All right. The drives, I think there was 2 drives maybe in the Alabama game where they didn't win on first down. They got behind and they ended up going 3 and out. They cannot go 3 and out in this environment. They can't do it. It's not going to work. They can't do it. So they got to win on first down, stay on schedule, at least pick up 1 first down before they have to punt. I think that's the minimum here for them to be successful in controlling the ball, controlling the clock. So from a defensive perspective, the way they can control the tempo, all right, this is the second key, okay? This is forcing Kentucky to drive the ball. Now, that sounds so basic, and I get it. You're like, well, no kidding. Yeah, of course you want to. But what that does psychologically for Kentucky is it makes them – it takes the crowd out of it a little bit, because if it's kind of like a slog fest and they can't get much going, they're going 3 and out, and it's just everything just seems so laborious for the offense, the crowd will kind of quiet down a little bit, and Kentucky's offense will start to have that doubt creep into their minds. Brock Vandegrift will be back there. He'll have that little bit of doubt, and when you have a little bit of doubt, you're hesitant. And if you're hesitant against their team, you got guys like Miles Capers that can get strip sacks, or you've got this defensive line that's really talented and as far as getting shooting through gaps and getting pressure on the quarterbacks or stopping the run game. That if you allow them to play at their tempo, if you allow them to keep you behind schedule, and if you allow them to keep you out of rhythm, then this defense can really feast on you. Okay, what Missouri did a good job of against this Vandy defense was they were able to disrupt that. They were able to say, okay, we're going to, on the series that they really did well on and they moved the ball well, they were able to find some success on the ground through the center of this defense, and they were able to keep the chains moving, and they actually put Vandy's defense on their heels at times, and that's how they were able to kind of stay in the game, because Vandy was kind of pushing them around a little bit for a good chunk of that game, and Missouri kind of kept themselves in it, ultimately winning it. But for Vandy's defense, they cannot. I mean, Vandegrift's a talented quarterback. We know that. There's something off about that offense. There's something off between Vandegrift and the offensive coordinator. There's something he's got weapons all around him. I mean, he's got Barryon Brown. He's got they've got a really good running game. Demi Sumo Caringbe, I think I said that wrong. Jamarion Wilcox. Those 2 running backs right there are good. They provide something, a bit of a pop in the run game. They have Dane Key as well to go with Barryon Brown. Both guys, pretty productive. Could be more productive if the offense was just kind of more of in a rhythm. They have a pretty good offensive line. They have Josh Caddis at tight end. I mean, they have weapons. It does it makes no sense how their offense is I don't want to say bad, but it could be so much better. But there's just something that's not quite right with this offense. And I think if you can keep them out of that rhythm and out of that sync, then you can control that, and you can force them into situations to where, all right, maybe they give the ball away. Like South Carolina had a really good game plan against this offense, and Brock Vandagriff was awful against South Carolina. All right, and I think if they can go and find that game plan as far as being disruptive, and I think it was all just, South Carolina being disruptive. There was, it was early in the season. They couldn't. It just seemed like their brain was scrambled. They couldn't really get much going. They couldn't get the ball out there to their playmakers. It was just an off game. They've since improved since they played South Carolina. They have improved offensively. They're moving the ball better. They moved the ball better against Georgia. They couldn't finish drives. They moved the ball better against Ole Miss. And, of course, Ohio and Southern Miss, I don't really count those games, but I'm just looking at conference games here. But and against Ole Miss, they finished a few of those drives, but, it took a little bit of good fortune with bounces, with the ball ricocheting off of three people to the tight end. It took a little more luck involved with some of that. But, again, you're starting to see them kind of figure it out. But for Vandy, you can't let them figure that out. You have to force them into looks that they haven't seen. That confuses Brock Vandagriff. Push the pocket from the inside. Try to flush him right into your rushers. Things like that. Like, he's still a new he's like a new veteran quarterback. He's only got a handful of starts under his belt since he's been at Kentucky, and there's still you can still confuse him. You can still force him into bad throws. You can still get pressure on him. He runs really well, but he's not Michael Vick, and you can still get sacks on him. You can still close the pocket in on him and really just kind of force him into throws that he doesn't really want to make. And that's kind of the recipe. Just keep Kentucky out of rhythm. I think their play caller, Sangriello, is not when a defense is just really hounding them with pressure, and that's what Vanderbilt does. I just don't think he's adapted yet to being able to call those things under that pressure. And that's an advantage for Vanderbilt as far as controlling the game. But they just, ultimately it's just going to come down to winning turnovers, managing this road environment. It's just going to come down to a lot of factors outside of that. But the first big thing is being able to dictate your tempo offensively and defensively. And we'll talk about how they can win the turnover battle next. All right. This episode is brought to you by ZBiotics. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by a PhD scientist to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Man, I could have used this a lot when I was in college. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that is to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. So just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. You'll feel like $1,000,000, right? Good Lord, I could have used this plenty of nights. It would have been awesome. I could have gotten so much done the next day. Instead, I'm laying around on the couch. But every time I have prebiotic, or every time I have this probiotic pre-alcohol drink, before I start drinking, I notice the difference the next day, even after a night out. I could confidently plan on mowing the lawn without worry. Look, I won't lie. I was a bit on the fence about pre-alcohol initially, but then while hanging out with all of my friends over, at the Preds game, I gave it a shot, and believe me, it's the real deal, man. So I first gave pre-alcohol a try when I was at a Christmas party. I drank it before my first whiskey and ginger, and you wouldn't believe how on top of my game I felt the very next morning, dude. I was sharp, dude. I was sharp. Right? So here's how you do it. You drink pre-alcohol for your best results. Make it your first drink of the night. You drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, get a good night's sleep, all that stuff, which I'm sure everyone does when you drink, and enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. So go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. All right, NFL fans. You're probably enjoying this 49ers Seahawks game right now as I'm recording this, but you can start the season with big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, we are back. Welcome back. It's the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making us part of your day every day. Thank you to the everydayers as well. Thank you to all of you that like and subscribe and watch, and all you Kentucky fans that have been with me this week, letting me know how you feel in the comments. Feel free to you can always be a part of the show. So, keys to the game, man. We've controlling the tempo, forcing Kentucky to drive the ball and keeping them out of rhythm. That's probably the most important thing. That's probably just Vandy's overall team identity at this point. All right. But winning the turnover battle is going to be important because, honestly, there's opportunities here for takeaways defensively. Now, if you do what I just mentioned in the first segment about getting after Kentucky, controlling the tempo, they're forcing them to stay out of rhythm, getting pressure on Vandergriff, disrupting his ability to step into throws and to make the right reads and, to make the right pre-snap reads. I think that they can get some turnovers. They need to get after the ball. They can make some interceptions, things like that. But they if they win the turnover battle, I think it's one of those things where I'm not sure Kentucky's offense, albeit is super talented, I just don't think as an operation, it's clean enough and crisp enough to overcome turnovers. So if Vandy can steal a possession or two and take care of the football on offense, they can win this game, and they can win it. They can win it pretty handily because, again, Kentucky. This is one of those things where when you have a struggling offense and you give the ball away, the sheer disappointment and demoralization that happens when you give the ball away when you're already struggling. It's just like it just seems to avalanche you. And the next thing you know, you just spiral downhill and it's over for you. And it's just like I've seen teams collapse so many times. I've seen offenses. Vandy did it at Georgia State. They just freaking collapsed. They got so down on themselves, and all of a sudden, all the crappy Vandy teams from years past showed up that night and just got into their heads. And all it was here we go again. This is just who we are. We just lose these type of games on the road. Why we're woe is me. I don't want to be here. That all that starts to creep into your head. That's the psychology behind when you're already struggling, giving the ball away. Okay. Now, if you're rolling and you give the ball away, it's just an occupational hazard and it just happens. Okay. And so it's no big deal. So to some team, like when you're on fire, it's not great. It's not ideal, but it's not a huge thing. It's not some backbreaking, just soul crushing, event. But when you're struggling like Kentucky, when you're just trying to find your footing and find your rhythm, which they haven't done consistently, and they got a hell of a win over Ole Miss, but they're still, and they'll admit that. I guarantee you every single person on that offense will admit this. They're not where they want to be. They did just enough to beat Ole Miss, but they are nowhere near where they want to be. Because that offense should be electric. You have a dual threat quarterback that can run and has a nice arm. You have Barryon Brown. He's lightning in a freaking bottle. That dude and Dane Key, both of them, are are really good key receivers that can really kind of light you up. And they need to get their hands on the ball more. Like, they need to be more efficient in getting the ball out. And when they are, like they have been at times, it's just not consistently enough. When they are, this offense goes boom, 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 boom right down the field, and can put the ball across the end zone. Like, it can be, and under Liam Cohen, it was a well-oiled machine. And if Liam Cohen was still here, I think we'd be having a whole different conversation. We'd be talking about, hey, have the same exact game plan you had against Bama, limit their offense and try to throw the kitchen sink at them. But I think with this type of offense that's struggling, you don't have to throw the kitchen sink at them, but you do need to find ways to get pressure, and you do need to find ways to confuse your quarterback and confuse your play caller, because it's possible here. And I think that's something that they can most definitely do. But it'll be, for Kentucky being the home team, that's an advantage here. And Vandy, I think, in order to execute all of this stuff, they have to first manage the road environment. I'll tell you what that means next. All right, Robinhood, and I'm not talking about the Prince of Thieves, but I am talking about Robinhood Gold. You don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn a very liberal rate of 4.5 APY on uninvested cash, receive an unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standards is here with Robinhood Gold. So sign up with Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Hey, we're wrapping up the show here on Locked On Vandy. Thanks for making us your first listen. Make sure you make Locked On SEC your next listen. Watch that next. I promise you. The SEC squad is out. That's really good. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch that. I think it's very entertaining. I make an appearance on there. I haven't been on there a whole lot, but I make an appearance on there because I just need to be more of a permanent fixture on that show, because Vandy needs some representation, man. Vandy doesn't get enough representation, so I'm going to make it a point to be on that show more. But anyway, going back to the keys of the game, man, to recap, control the tempo, force Kentucky to get in a rhythm, force them to drive the ball, force them to earn it, and then win the turnover battle. And I think, lastly, to make sure you do all this is you're playing in a tough road environment, okay? And you got to manage that. They did a poor job, extremely poor job at managing the environment at Georgia State. And environment also means mindset too. They did a better job against Missouri, mostly because it was a conference game, but I still think the environment was able to get to them just a little bit too much there, especially in the end. I think they felt the pressure a little bit, and Brock Taylor felt the pressure a little bit in that road environment, and he missed a few key kicks. All right. So the road environment is this, okay? Your mindset has got to be in a different place when you're playing on the road. It's more hostile. Kroger Field is it's an awful place to play if you're a road team, because it's a hostile environment. Their fans get behind the team. They have a good atmosphere there. Okay, and I call it the grocery bag because it's just funny because it's Kroger Field, right? It's not a knock on how the quality of their stadium. Vandy has no room to talk about quality of stadiums, but this is a tough environment, okay? And so road games are tough on you. Okay, you're sleeping in a hotel, you're riding buses, you had to get on a plane, or they might have bussed this one, but regardless, you're cramped up on something for most of the trip. You're eating in a hotel, ballroom. You're doing your walkthroughs there. It's just a different schedule, different scenery, different way of doing things, right? You're not in your own bed. You don't have your own pillows. You don't have your own stuff. You're living out of a suitcase. So all of that before you get to the stadium. Okay, you have to ride a bus to the stadium. You're just all like, I'm just cramped up. Buses aren't comfortable. So you get to the stadium. You're warming up in a different place. You got different music. You got like fans yelling at you when you're walking in. Like there's all kind of psychological things that happen on the road that don't happen at your own place, right? Or maybe at Vandy it does happen because Vandy's a home away from home for a lot of teams. But you're at least warming up in your own. You're at least going through your own routines, as fans are yelling at you. But, it's going to be a tough environment there. There's different scenery. There's different backdrop when the quarterback's throwing you the ball. There's a different backdrop for the kickers, different turf, different weather conditions are a little bit different. Just like the sea of blue, there's just like different color pops around you. It's like different stuff to look at can throw you off a little bit. And those slightest things, especially the kicker, can throw you off. So you have to manage all that. You have to manage your mindset with all that. And you have to find ways to kind of push through and get with that. So if you're not super focused in warmups, then it's going to be tough on you. And if you're not in a position to where you can block some of that stuff out, and just zone in on, the football coming at you, or like you zone in on the goalpost because it's not what the goalposts look like at your own place. You just have to overcome some of that. And if you can do that, you'll be just fine. And I think Vandy did that better against Missouri. They were able to kind of dictate that. But that's part of also being able to dictate your tempo, is being able to say, all this is blocked out. I don't care what's happening here. I don't care what the noise is. They can scream whatever they want. Just right here, man. Just right here. We got you. Okay. Right here. And just do your thing and you'll be just fine. But road environments are a thing in the SEC. Home field advantage is a thing in this league. It is an absolute thing. Ask Tennessee. They'll tell you. Ask Alabama. They played on the road. I mean, it's Vandy. It's not like the most impossible place to play, but it is a road game. It is a road environment. They lost. Just saying. Ask Missouri. They went into Kyle Field. They got stomped. They didn't Alabama did not manage the road environment very well. Missouri did not manage the road environment very well. Tennessee did not manage the road environment very well, right? And that's a key. That's a big thing. And it got to them. Like it just even the slightest distractions can be magnified when you have however many thousand fans screaming at you while you're playing. Like that can throw you off. That can throw you off enough to be just barely missing that deep shot that you always hit at home or during practice, just barely off to where you can't get the calls and the pass protection, just a little bit off to where you can't get the coverage calls and you blow coverage. And next thing you know, the crowd's going absolutely bananas, worse than bonkers, actually. One slight thing that throws you off as a kicker, you're yanking that thing to the left and 15 yards wide left to the goalpost in overtime when you've pretty much had control of the game for the most part. Like those things can happen to you. And it's not that Brock Taylor sucks. He's proved time and time again he doesn't suck as a kicker. And I hate that when people say that. He just, again, it's just a road. It's just like a environment thing. Like he just lost focus in those moments and something threw him off. I guarantee he'll tell you something with the turf or something in the backdrop of where he was trying to focus on, something did not allow him to complete his rhythmic kicking procedure. Something threw him off and he was not able to do it. He did just fine last week against Alabama, nailed every kick he had. Just boom, right down the freaking middle, except for I think the one extra point where he pushed it. But he was focused. He was sharp when he needed it. I think he hit 250-plus yarders against Alabama. if I remember correctly. He had a 57 against Missouri right before half. Like, he's good. I think sometimes kickers, if the slightest thing is off, they lose focus. But yeah, so there you go. Manage the road environment. I think it's super, super important. I'm going to overtime here a little bit. I'm going to give you some picks to kind of carry you into the weekend with. I'm taking Vandy plus 11.5. It's the name of the show, but I really, honestly, if I wasn't a Vandy guy, if I wasn't a Vandy fan, if I wasn't the host of Locked On Vandy, I would still pick Vandy in this plus 11.5. I think Diego Pavia has convinced me that he can carry this team, and I think if they don't end up winning, I think they still do cover, but I think they're going to win outright. I like Texas minus 14. Oklahoma's just not ready to win this game. They've got too many problems. They got a freshman quarterback that's going to struggle against Texas, and Quinn Ewers is back, and he's amazing. He might be a little rusty, but I think he'll get it together, and Texas wins this one and covers by 14. And then I like Ole Miss at LSU. I think they've had a tough couple of games offensively to where they're just like they had an abysmal game against Kentucky, and they allowed Kentucky to take them out of their sweet spot and out of their rhythm. And South Carolina was I just don't think they were in it. But this is a Magnolia Bowl. So this is a much more important game. I like Ole Miss minus 3.5. I think that's going to be an easy cover for them. I just don't trust LSU right now. I just don't. Sorry. It's the truth. I don't trust them. But that's going to do it for me here. Make sure you have a great weekend. Make sure you behave yourselves. And if you do tailgate up in Lexington, make sure you visit Keeneland and do so responsibly. We'll see you back here next week. Possibly a post-game show. Stay tuned for that possibility. And especially if following a Vandy win as of right now until I get to 1,000 subscribers. If I can get to 1,000, I'll do a post-game every week. But until then, it's win and you get the show. Get a full show, lose, you get a YouTube short. Okay. That's just going to be the way I do it until I get to 1,000. So get me to 1,000, you'll get that. But have a good weekend. We'll see you back here Monday or possibly post game. Stay tuned. Good luck. Anchor down. Behave yourselves. Peace.